Hey, what's up guys? Well, in this video I'm just going to be doing a little bit of a book review. Right here I have the Advanced Dredging Part 2 book by Dave McCracken, and I also have another book. Unfortunately I don't have the cover of it anymore. It got tore off or whatever. But anyway, this book is by Matt Thornton. I'll go ahead and throw a photo up of the cover shot here. This is also a really good book. I think these books are actually pretty similar. However, they have their own twist on things. In this video, I'm just going to be talking about this book, and in the future, I'll come back and I'll do a review on this book. So, Dave McCracken wrote this book. I don't exactly know when he published it or when he wrote it. I'm sure it might say in here, but I would be guessing it was the early 80s or the mid 80s or sometime in the 80s. Well, this book the introduction starts out talking about frequencies, and it makes a lot of good sense to me. Dave's pretty much just saying, if you take a radio that has all this static and stuff and you have the ability to dial in the radio and get a clear signal, but you choose not to do that, well, that's really your own fault. And what he's saying is, in the past, he's offered help to a lot of people, and maybe you guys can relate. You try to help somebody out and they don't want to take your help. They don't want to listen to what you have to say, and they think that they know it all. They say, what are you? You don't know what you're talking about. I know everything. He's pretty much saying, if you're not able to tune in the frequency, or you ignore the frequency and the information is out there, it's not anybody else's fault pretty much except yourself if you end up failing. And if you want to be successful, you really have to tune your frequency in. You have to have an open ear, and you have to allow yourself to be able to take somebody else's help, especially when you're in the beginner stages and you don't really know that much about what you're getting into. So a great way to learn is to find somebody who has experience and to learn from them. So I believe chapter 1 starts out with talking about different types of stream materials and different type of bedrock, and maybe even how to read a river. Now, I'm not going to get into every chapter of the book here, but I'm just going to do a little review and tell you guys what I picked up from reading this book. Well, I bought this book a few plus years ago before I ever went gold dredging. I was getting into it and I wanted to read some information from somebody who had some experience, and Dave definitely has some experience dredging. So I thought, why not learn from one of the best out there? And that's the reason I went ahead and bought this book. Well, we already went over the introduction stages, and chapter number 1, it just pretty much talks about different types of stream materials and how to read those types of stream materials to know whether or not that you're actually dredging in virgin material, or rather maybe you're dredging through tellings, and it just tells you a little bit of the signs to be able to read the different types of stream materials and all that kind of good stuff. So the book talks about, in chapter 2, production dredging. Production dredging is pretty much being as effective as possible when you're down there dredging, and to run as much material as you can in your run time. So you're not getting down there and you're not messing around. You're getting down underneath the water, you're getting straight to work, and you're pushing as much material through the sluice box as you can every hour. And in the book here, they talk about working with teammates and all that kind of stuff, and having different signs and hand signals and stuff so you can communicate underwater and all that kind of stuff. Now, when I go out dredging, I pretty much work by myself all the time. There's been a couple cases where I've had a dredging partner, but most of the time I'm always out working by myself. However, it can still help you out as an individual as well. I think the biggest thing that I took away from chapter 2 in production dredging is not to get down there and nitpick. And nitpicking is when you get down there and you don't really have the right tools, you don't have your pry bar with you or anything like that, and you're trying to move rocks that maybe you need to suck out material from these other rocks first so you can actually get to that rock. So it just talks about being efficient with your time when you're underneath the water working, and how to be efficient. Now, this book has a wide source of information in it. It talks about reading the stream and how to read a river and all that type of stuff. And it even talks about how to build a heating system and how a heating system works. And it talks about a wetsuit versus a dry suit. Dave actually recommends that if you're going to be a cold water dredger and you're going to work in the winter, he recommends that you go with the hot water systems versus the dry suits. Now, guys have told me that I should not run hot water heater because they are very dangerous, but this book will talk about being safe with a hot water heating system, and it will tell you how to do it safely. But pretty much he recommends that if you're going to be a wintertime diver, that the hot water systems work a lot better than the dry suits. Now, he recommends that you dive with the hot water diving systems when you're dredging in the winter, but when you are prospecting and you're going to be floating up and down the creeks, or you're going to be floating up and down the rivers, and you're going to be looking and you're going to be sniping And sniping is the practice of where you go out and you look for a spot to prospect at. You don't have your dredge with you. You're just out looking underneath the water with your goggles. You got your head in the water and you're down there with your sucker thing and you're taking samples from different parts of the stream. That's when he says that you want a dry suit, because a dry suit for prospecting, you can float up and down the river and you don't have to have any lines attached to you. Once you're set up and you find your spot, he's pretty much just saying you're a lot better off with a hot water system. You're going to stay a lot warmer than you would in a dry suit. Now, there's plenty of other information out there on hot water heating systems. In the future, I'm going to be doing a video on that myself. Anyways, that's just a little bit of what I took from the book, and that's one of the reasons that I run a hot water system versus a dry suit. Another thing that goes back to nitpicking in a way is winching boulders, and in the book it talks about how to winch boulders and do it the right way and to be effectively do it the right way and be effective when you do it, and how to sling a boulder. You might think, oh, it's easy, you just wrap a rope around there, but there is some techniques that need to be put in place if you want to move a boulder efficiently without having your ropes. I've done it many times. You wrap a rock up and you think that you're good to go, and then you put the winch on there and you pull it and the rope ends up slipping off. So it just has different techniques on how to actually, it just talks about how to put a tow strap around a boulder and all that good stuff. But there's a lot of good information in this book. It goes from how to repair your wetsuit and suit repairs to one of my favorite parts of the book was talking about running a successful dredging operation. And it was talking about, his story was, there was a guy that did really well gold mining, and he did really well. He went out, first time ever doing this, and he did really well, and he got excited and he went ahead and he took all the gold that he found and he bought an apartment. He put new furniture in the apartment. I think he might have bought himself a new pickup truck, and he did all this kind of stuff and he spent his money. But what ended up happening was, well, he ended up running out of money and he couldn't find any more gold. And Dave just talks about being smart with your prospecting program and your mining operation, and how that you should not spend money and put money into things that you really cannot afford to put it. Even if you had some success at first, he mentions that you shouldn't go ahead and spend all your success. You shouldn't take all the gold that you find and cash it in and spend it all thinking, hey, I'm just going to find some more gold right away. He talks about using the gold that you find to keep doing what you're doing and to keep prospecting and to keep mining, rather than to take all the funds that you have and to think that you're going to go out and hit it on your next mining adventure, and then you don't end up hitting it and you're wondering, what the heck, I'm broke now. And anyways, the story ended, the guy had to get rid of his apartment, he had to get rid of all his furniture, he had to get rid of his vehicle, and he pretty much ended up going broke. And I don't know the rest of his story from there. And there's nothing wrong with buying nice mining equipment and having nice stuff and having a good operation of all the top line stuff, but he's pretty much just saying, don't go ahead and don't spend all your money on that stuff right away. Keep using the tools and the equipment that you have until you can get a little bit farther ahead and you can actually afford to invest in these things without killing the bankroll that you already have. He even talks into telling you what kind of food that you can eat out there. Talks about eating beans and stuff like that out of the can, and how you can actually eat pretty cheap, and how you can actually eat pretty cheap for a long time if that's something that you want to do and this is the path that you want to pursue. Unfortunately, California right now is currently outlawed. That's where Dave did most of his dredging and all of his suction dredging that I'm aware of, and that's where he has had his success, dredging out in California. Like I said, unfortunately, you can't go out to California right now and you can't be a dredger legally because it's against the law. But there's still good tips to apply to your dredging program to wherever you're dredging in the world. I mean, what applies in California for suction dredging applies anywhere else that you go to. Some of the other information that I found helpful in this book, it talks about fast water diving. Some guys won't even get in the fast water. They'll see a little bit of a current and they'll get freaked out and they think, oh, it's too fast, I can't dive in that. But the book talks about how to do it efficiently and how to be effective when you're fast water diving. Another thing that's interesting about this book is it talks about positive stress. Dave has a story where him and his buddies hit it really good one day, and I think they found like a 15-ounce nugget or whatever not. It was a really big piece of gold, and they were in a really hot area, and he talks about how he shut down the operation right away after that happened. And he said, you know what, guys, this is a really good moment. I want you all to take off the rest of the day. I want you to go to town. I want you to have some fun, and I want you to calm down. Because what happens is positive stress can actually ruin people. You know, people who get financially successful in life and they win the lottery or whatever not, and they end up tearing their life apart, and they end up off worse than they would have been if they would have never won the lottery or anything like that. I'll read from you a bit from this book. You know the feeling of exhilaration when your favorite sports team make a great and unexpected score? That is momentary positive stress. Long-term positive stress can be experienced when you are suddenly faced with a life-changing event of unexpectedly good fortune. Most of us don't have much experience with that happening in our lives, but the nature of successful gold dredging requires that you brace yourself to deal with sudden positive stress situations. I'm not kidding about this, because if if you really do throw yourself wholeheartedly into gold dredging, the chances are pretty good that you will find yourself uncovering some rich gold deposits. Which you do uncover rich gold deposits, the surge of positive emotion you will experience needs to be managed carefully. This is a very personal matter. The most common term for positive emotion in our industry is gold fever. My personal best day in gold dredging was 24 ounces of gold nuggets taken out of a pocket. The largest nugget was 15.5 ounces. It was about the size of a dollar bill and about half an inch thick. I was dredging with several other guys. We got so excited we could no longer focus well enough to dredge anymore. For the rest of the day, using good judgment, I gave the crew the day off and encouraged them to get out of camp. That 24 ounces was the point of discovery of a rich pay streak that produced a strong surplus of income for quite a long time. Financial affluence brings about emotional affluence. Both must be managed. The best way I can describe the feeling of an overwhelming amount of positive stress is to liken it to forcing 25 watts of output through a 10-watt speaker. You know how the sound distorts. Positive stress distorts your emotions in a similar way. It's very uncomfortable. Even if the enthusiasm or exhilaration that you are feeling, the distortion does not feel good. A person like a sound speaker can only handle so much at a time before experiencing overload. So I fully understand what he's saying there. It's kind of like when you go out and you hit, maybe you hit a 20-ounce pocket or something, and maybe you want to run up to the grocery store or wherever you're at and say, "Woo! I hit the gold! Woo!" I've seen people run around the gold mines yelling and getting excited when they find little pieces of gold. And there's nothing wrong with that, guys. There's nothing wrong about being excited and being happy. But there gets a point when maybe you let your excitement and you let your happiness get the best of you. So it might not be a good idea to go and tell everybody in the world that you just hit a 20-ounce pocket. Especially if you want to keep that area a little bit of a secret and you want to be the one who takes all the treasure out of there, aka the gold. It pretty much just talks about getting in line with your emotions and how to handle positive stress. You see how the guys took the day off and they got out of camp for the day? Well, they walked away from that gold mining situation and they kind of had time to process what actually just happened. And then when they went back to work, they had a nice clear head on, hey, this is a good pay streak. We know what we're in now, and let's get to work. Rather than getting all emotionally hyped up and maybe taking it the wrong way, because gold can have quite the emotions on some people, and you really need to take that in factor, because gold can have emotions on people, and sometimes those emotions aren't good. So sometimes it's good to take a step back and really analyze what has just happened, calm down a little bit, get refocused, and then go back to work. So I thought that was a pretty good part of the book too. I can definitely understand that. If you just came into a lot of money or something, it might be a good idea to let that money sit in the bank for several months before you actually touch any of it. Now, most people who come into a lot of money, they're going to spend it right away, or they're going to spend some of it, and I fully understand that. But it's pretty much just saying, take a break, calm down, analyze what just happened to yourself, and then move forward with the best positive way that you can, rather than letting your emotions get the best of you and maybe even causing fights between your dredging partners and all that kind of stuff, because it has happened in the past. So positive stress sounds like a crazy thing, but I fully understand where he's coming from, and it makes a lot of good sense to me. You have to be able to handle your emotions in the bad times, and you have to be able to handle your emotions in the good times. So I'm going to finish out by talking about a little bit more about production dredging. And Dave usually has some team members or something, it looks like. I've never met the guy personally, but it always seems like he has a team around him or something like that when he's in a big dredging operation. And the reason that is because when you're down there dredging, if you have another guy with you that's moving rocks out, that's less time that you have to take moving rocks out of the way. And then because half of dredging is moving rocks, guys, and if you can get down there and you can have somebody else move the rocks out of the big rocks that you can't suck up, and get out of the way, and you can have a partner move those rocks for you, then you're going to process more material at the end of the day. And this is a tip for myself. If you're a one guy dredging team, sometimes it's good to let the motor run on midway and just go down there and clear rocks and don't even actually do any dredging. And then when you're ready, and then when you got all the rocks out of the way, go down there and dredge everything that you can, and then just keep doing that process. Because if you're down there moving rocks and dredging, it gets to a point sometimes where you spend more time moving rocks than you actually do dredging. So that's pretty much what production dredging comes down to, and having a team of guys. The team of guys can move the rocks for you, and you can stay on the nozzle, and you can keep sucking up material and put that gold in the sluice box, hopefully. Alright guys, this is a good book, and I recommend that you read it. And if you are interested in picking up a copy of this book, I'm going to go ahead and place a link down below in the description, and you can find it there. I hope that you found this book review helpful or interesting. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing so, and I'll talk at you in the next one.